Welcome to the 531, where we debate a top 5 list on a particular subject, further discuss it down to a top 3, and then eventually settle on a top 1. Now after this beat, we'll get to today's subject.
We've got the 531 this week. We're doing it without Joe. He's been working overtime. He works in the grocery business, and he's been kicking the ass and taking names, so he's a little exhausted. He couldn't make it down this week, but he did send us a list. But we've got all the usual suspects. Dan, tell us what we're going to talk about in the 531 this week.
We are talking about the top 5 current female wrestlers working today.
Hold up. You guys are going to do a 531 and not give it a proper intro? Look, man, I paid big money. We're going big on the intro. And needless to say, this might be the intro we stick with. We'll see what the fans say. Welcome to the 531, where we debate a top 5 list on a particular subject, further discuss it down to a top 3, and then eventually settle on a top 1. Now after this beat, we'll get to today's subject.
We've got the 531 this week. We're doing it without Joe. He's been working overtime. He works in the grocery business, and he's been kicking the ass and taking names, so he's a little exhausted. He couldn't make it down this week, but he did send us a list. But we've got all the usual suspects. Dan, tell us what we're going to talk about in the 531 this week.
We are talking about the top 5 current female wrestlers working today. So with any promotion you want to do, all right, yeah, let's, who you got, who do you think the best ladies are right now doing it? I'm ready to go. Go ahead.
So now you went out there and you got a list from people, as always. I assume that
yes.
Jesse in New Hampshire had something to say about this.
He does, yeah. So, yeah, we did this on short notice, so we were probably pretty much only able to get the hardcores, or most of the hardcores. But, yeah, Jesse's here, so I'll kick off with Jesse. He's got the man, Becky Lynch, kicking it off. He's got, Charlotte Flair. Nobody ready for Asuka, the Boss, Sasha Banks, and Shayna Baszler.
Wow, WWE well represented.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talk about WWE, we can be negative, but forget booking for a minute. They do have some of the best all-around women's wrestlers.
No, they definitely do. I think that was a little heavy towards the main roster compared to some of the talent we have on NXT, but yeah.
Well, let's see how this goes then. We got Jake St. John with a list. We got Shayna Baszler, Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch. All right, let's break it up. Tyler Valkyrie and Tessa Blanchard.
There you go. Jake's bringing it home.
You want variety? Joe's got a list. Tyler Valkyrie, Tessa Blanchard, Charlotte Flair, Miko Satomura, and this one I'm not as familiar with, but I got to look her up. A lot of Triple H stuff. I'm not sure if I'm saying this right. Lady Shania. So, very talented.
Good one.
Yeah, he brought in a mix. We got Zach, Charlotte Flair, Tessa Blanchard, Kylie Sane, Asuka, Rhea Ripley.
Very good.
Yeah, all right. We at least added Kylie Sane. That was a little different. A real common theme here. The last person we got a list from this week, besides me or you, Randy. We're going to hear this name again. It's a lot of WWE names, but also this young lady. Number 1, Tessa Blanchard. Number 2, Io Shirai. 3, Tyler Valkyrie. 4, Deonna Purrazzo. 5, pretty much making everybody's list this week, Charlotte Flair.
I don't know if she's not going to make anyone miss, to be honest with you.
Well, AJ, I'm going to give you main event spot this week. Let me give you my list. Kicking it off. Woo! Charlotte Flair. Becky Lynch. Tessa Blanchard. Another common theme. Asuka and Rhea Ripley. Runner-up was close. I wanted to put her in there, but at the end of the day, I gave it to Ripley. But Toni Storm.
Wow, all right. Good list, man. Good list. I am going to be like everybody else and put Charlotte Flair on there. I do think that when it comes to women's wrestling, Charlotte Flair is above and beyond what a talented athlete is.
Yes.
And brings a lot to the ring. For my number 2 spot, I'm going to bring in Thunder Rosa.
All right.
I think Thunder Rosa is head and shoulders above the rest of the NWA women's wrestling. I think from Impact, you've got to have Tessa Blanchard in there.
Absolutely.
I think that she is one of the top wrestlers in the world, not just women's, but wrestlers, period. I gotta tell you, some of the rest of the list was tough, but I think that Toni Storm doesn't get the credit that she deserves, and she does make my list. I don't know why the WWE has soured on her the way that they have, but to me, she is one of the best women's wrestlers on the planet.
Okay.
And then one that will mystify me till the end of the day, why the WWE didn't see anything in her to actually give her the push that she deserves. I think she's going to make a huge splash on the independent. Deonna Purrazzo, easy for me to say.
Yes. Before we kick it off in the next round, I want to comment here on a couple things. One, Thunder Rosa is talented. I'm glad you put her on your list. And I think you might have hit on something there. With Thunder Rosa being in the NWA and it being so far above everybody else, she might not shine as good as she's gonna shine when we see her in other promotions down the road.
And she did shine before coming to the NWA.
Absolutely. I've seen her on the independent in some tag matches, and she was great.
And that's what I was going based on. I wasn't going based on her work in the NWA, even though she has been able to elevate people. I just don't think the women's division of the NWA is anywhere near as strong as anywhere else in wrestling right now.
So, clearly going on to round 2, it's got to be Charlotte and Tessa based off these lists. Now...
So we need to get into something that's going to make me probably not very popular.
All right.
You might have noticed somebody missing from my list.
You didn't have Becky Lynch.
You're damn right I didn't have Becky Lynch.
Well, you know what? Go ahead.
Becky Lynch has wrestled little to nothing over the last 6 months, and she is focusing far more now on other opportunities than she is on wrestling, and I think that her wrestling has become stagnant.
Well, based on the fan support, our top spot for... Okay, so Charlotte basically got 7 votes, Tessa got 6, and we had 3 people with 3 votes. Becky Lynch, Asuka, and Tyler Valkyrie. Based off those comments, I'm going to say the first one you want to see eliminated is Becky Lynch.
Out of those 3, I would. I think Asuka is taking steps in the right direction. Her wrestling is still as high up as it ever has been, and she is finding her personality. And then you talk about someone who unfortunately is on a smaller platform who's not going to get the credit that she deserves yet. Taya Valkyrie is a hell of a worker, almost as good as her husband.
I'm going to throw 2 other names out there, even though they only each got 2 votes. And I'll have them... We'll do a tournament style again. We'll do top 4. We're going to throw out Becky. And we'll see. All right, so just out of these 4, here's the tournament. I'm going to take Asuka and put her up against Rhea Ripley. Who moves on?
Wow. I would go Asuka. Don't get me wrong. I like Rhea Ripley.
Yeah.
I just don't think she's where she's going to be yet.
I hear that. And then I'm going to say Taya Valkyrie, and we'll give her a little competition too. Shayna Baszler.
Once again, I like both of them. I don't think Shayna's connecting yet the way that I would like to see her connect. And to me, I would go Taya Valkyrie.
Okay, so then moving on to that final 3rd spot, we got Valkyrie and Asuka. Who's going to take the 3rd spot?
Well, now, what are you thinking on this?
Well, first off, back up a little bit. I do agree with you on Ripley. She's amazing, but we probably haven't seen the best of her yet. Baszler is about as believable and as intense as we can get, but maybe when you talk about the personality, that next level, maybe that's where Valkyrie would outshine her. So I don't have a problem with that. Now, as for Valkyrie versus Asuka, ooh, that's tough. Asuka was in that main event match a couple years ago. Well, maybe it wasn't a main event match, but she had a match. Her first loss was to Charlotte Flair at a WrestleMania. But man, I thought those matches were just phenomenal that she had with Charlotte. At the end of the day, it's really tough to say. Personality-wise, Asuka's really coming into her own, too. I would put Asuka moving on, and I'd have her there with Tessa and Charlotte.
I actually agree with you.
Okay, so since Charlotte's got the most votes, I think we'll give her a round to the finals. Asuka versus Tessa. Your call. What do you think?
So, I would go right now, personally, just because she's on a larger platform, and I hate to say that,
Yeah.
but there's more of a spotlight on her, and from people who prefer to work with her, if I'm starting a promotion, I would go more towards Asuka at this point.
Yeah, and here's the funny thing about that, too. This probably wouldn't make us the most popular guys based on this list, but I agree a lot with what you're saying. Now, Tessa can go. She's going with men. She's doing some phenomenal things. At the end of the day, I think we both agree that Asuka is just somebody that's severely underrated. And even though she's on that major platform, maybe doesn't get the fucking push she should get. I don't have...
She's taken her spotlight and personality to the next level, barely speaking English.
Yeah, into WWE, which is almost impossible to get a push on the main roster and not speak English very clearly.
Yeah, well, even if you speak English very well, if you have a slight accent, Cesaro, sometimes McMahon can be against you.
Yes.
So,
You can tell who AJ thinks deserves to be pushed. Cesaro and Tony Storm. Tony Storm hasn't even had the worst push of the company, but AJ is livid, and she's not on top right now.
she's being villainized. She's being villainized by somebody in the WWE.
I gotta be honest with you. I'll go with Asuka into the finals because at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter to me. Because at the end of the day,
it doesn't matter. You can interchange all of them. Let's face it, there's honorable mentions that didn't make our list.
Yeah.
That are great talents right now.
Yeah.
Liv Morgan is coming into her own right now.
Sure.
You've got Alexa Bliss, who is, you can say whatever you want about her. Every time she comes to the ring, she performs.
Yeah.
You've got Sasha Banks, you've got Bayley, you've got all kinds of people that could make this list. We didn't even mention the AEW winner. Nobody from AEW made the list.
No. There's probably a reason for that. Now, there's some talented women in AEW, but that's a division that still needs work because, like, when you talk about other women, I mean, I really think that besides internationally, Impact and WWE are right now the top places for women to work.
Well, somebody internationally who didn't make the list, who quite frankly could easily make the list, Priscilla Kelly. Did not make the list.
Kylie Ray.
Another one, Kylie Ray. We didn't even get into the fact of the NXT women. You have women down there in NXT, whether it's Candice LeRae, whether it's Team Tick, whether it's just an absolute shine fest down there right now. What's her name? Who's going to be challenging Charlotte next Wednesday? Who just challenged Charlotte this Wednesday?
Io Shirai. She did make one person's list on there. Yeah, Io Shirai, Tegan Knox. There's just so much talent. It's really great. But at the end of the day, I'll take you back before we finish this up because I think we know where we're going here. WrestleMania last year, Becky Lynch had all the momentum in the world. She got red hot. She tore it up. Ronda Rousey was the reason why that main event was taking place, folks, whether you like it or not, because she had the big name. And God bless Ronda, she came in there ready to show up. But when you put that main event together, there was a reason why they threw Charlotte Flair in there at the end of the day. Because Charlotte Flair was going to be the one who held that all together just in case something went wrong. And that's not a knock on Becky, because there's got to be somebody who's A1 and just somebody who's just, oh man, just a little bit better. And that person's Charlotte Flair in my book. She is without a doubt. People hate her.
Make an analogy here for you.
Go ahead.
To me, and I know that it's not fair to compare her to her father. She's obviously coming to her own.
Yeah.
But this is the one time I'm going to make the analogy with her father. For decades, when it came to wrestling, you would see people come and go who would be fantastic, shining lights, and they would always come and go. But there was one consistent, and that consistent was that if you put somebody in there with Ric Flair, he was going to get them over, and you were going to have a hell of a match. Charlotte Flair has come into her own now, and she is that shining light. Whoever you put in there with her, and you're going to get a hell of a match. The person's going to get over, and they're going to be better than they were before.
No arguments here. At the end of the day, she's only been in the business for a short time, but she's already one of the all-time greats as far as I'm concerned.
There is one thing I'd like to say about Tessa Blanchard, though.
Yeah.
And this is the difference between her and Charlotte. Even though they've been wrestling almost the same amount of time, Charlotte is a lot older than Tessa Blanchard.
Oh, yeah.
And Charlotte is in her, mid-30s, whereas Tessa Blanchard is still in her early 20s.
There is a lot of time for some women to still grow, and they might explode in the next few years. Another one we didn't even mention.
If you're looking to see where women's wrestling is going, the thing that you have to keep in mind right now is the two biggest names in the WWE right now, probably, I think you would agree with me, are Becky and Charlotte. However, both of them are also probably the two oldest women, well, other than Natalya, the two oldest women in the WWE.
And you know what? Just throw one more youthful name out there we didn't mention. A woman, when she first came on the scene, I wasn't really a big fan of, but she's so athletic, she's got charisma, and if handled correctly, she could be a force down the road. Bianca Belair.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, a lot of talent.
For Bianca Belair, it's not learning to do things. I think it's actually going to be, believe it or not, learning what not to do.
Absolutely, yeah. Learning what not to do and when to do it, as they say. I think she's...
sometimes less is more.
Yeah, she could definitely be a force down the road as well. So many great talents. At the end of the day, I think this is the one we got right, unlike maybe some of our previous 5-3-1s. Charlotte Flair.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Kane is the greatest masked luchador of all time. People can kiss my ass. Glenn Jacobs rules. But at the end of the day, this one, I think, no matter how good, we were really just debating about 2 and 3. End of the day, we give it to Charlotte Flair. Woo!
Absolutely.
And that's the 5-3-1, folks. Thanks for showing up. We're out.
Guys, thank you for listening to the 531 here on YouTube this week. If you like what you hear, you can always find us on Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and on the Apple Podcast where you can subscribe and also give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate you listening. We want your feedback, 531, and if you agree with us, if you disagree with us, we also want you to let us know, and let us know what your 531 would be. Come up with a top 5 and let us know, and we'll tell you why you're wrong. And in order for us to do that, please contact us on Twitter. We're at Fans Working. Facebook page, Working Fans Wrestling Pod. Email workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. It's very important that you actually contact us on these platforms because we want this to be your interactive place to talk wrestling.